students go on study abroad programs to expose them to a different world, literally. And 11th and 12th graders have to take AP English. There is no regular English.
All that began in 2007. That's the year Michelle Rhee was brought in to turn around DC schools. In her eyes, she was standing up for poor kids who were stuck in an ineffective bureaucratic system. She famously, or infamously, appeared on the cover of Time magazine, and she starred in a popular documentary about school reform.
So you think that most of the kids in DC are getting a crappy education right now?
Oh, I don't think they are. I know they are. There's a complete and utter lack of accountability for the job that we're supposed to be doing, which is producing results from kids.
Rhee attracted millions of dollars in private funding. At the same time, she fired hundreds of teachers and closed dozens of schools. I spoke with Bill Turk of the Washington Post, who covered her for many years.
Her central argument was that the children in the district were being shortchanged. One of the biggest issues was the fact that teachers overwhelmingly got very good evaluations. And at the same time, students in the schools where they worked were all failing miserably. And I think she also felt that looking at the system, and it was hard to argue with her again, that a student in Anacostia was not getting the same education as a student in Tennytown, and that made it a civil rights issue in her way of thinking.
I remember in one of my first few meetings with her, she said, children over here do worse than children in Puerto Rico.
She had a lot of very graphic ways of explaining things, and that was what became her political problem, is that she, as a change agent, she didn't really think much about who she was offending. What I think set her apart was that she immediately called out a very powerful political constituency, which were the organized teachers and the teachers union. And by making it clear that she thought they had failed at their jobs, she was not only taking on the union, but she was taking on really what was the core of the black middle class.
Do you think she didn't understand how race and class kind of fit into her picture of education reform?
I think she did understand. I just think that it was not important to her, and that what was more important to her was to see the performance of the schools rise. I mean, she was aware that the optics did not work in her favor, that she was a blunt-spoken, very impolitic Korean woman calling out an African-American dominated political system, and that was just bound to cause sparks.
And she did cause sparks. Mayor Adrian Fenty was voted out in 2010, and one major issue was Rhee's education reform.
But much of the change she brought is still in effect. Now in DC, a teacher's evaluation is linked to students' test scores. There are large bonuses and additional pay for top-performing teachers. There's also far more of the belief across the board that all students can, should, and will learn.
But one thing that hasn't changed as much is the demographics in schools. One report calls this racial isolation. In almost 95% of DCPS schools in 2010, white students made up less than 5% of the student body.
Oh, it's hugely problematic.
This is Richard Collenberg. He's with the think tank The Century Foundation, and he's written several books about diversity in schools. He's critical of efforts to improve education in recent years. He says we've been trying to make separate but equal work.